Need and importance of classification. Nature has bestowed on us biological wonders in many forms and diversity in great abundance. Every organism, plant or animal is unique in itself. Every place, such as hills, forests, deserts, freshwater bodies, seaside, etc., is rich in flora and fauna. Variety of flora and fauna also varies in different geographical locations. An enormous number of species inhabit the earth. Scientists need to understand the living organisms so that they keep track of all species by classifying them into certain categories. When scientists sort and group living things, they call it classification. They classify living things in groups that are alike in some way. Classification is sorting out of likenesses. Approximately 1.4 million species have been identified and named. Many more millions of species are yet to be discovered. Total number of living species on Earth is approximately between 10 and 100 million. Need of classification. Classification is very important in our life. In general, classification simply means the grouping together of alike things according to common qualities or characteristics. By classifying things into different segments, our life becomes more organized and easy. Let us see two situations and compare them. One situation is where the things are kept organized and the other where they are not. Scientists use classification systems to help them make sense of the world around them. Similarly, it is essential to organize information and objects in other spheres of life. Imagine you go to a library and try to look for a particular book. Here is the scenario. May I have a book on rose plant, please? Of course, just go over there. Where? To those shelves, boy. There are 100 shelves. Which one? I am not sure, but I know that we have a book on roses somewhere in the library. How can I find one book in this big library? Another scenario. When you want to search a book on a particular topic or thing, you visit a school library. May I have a book on rose plant, please? Of course, just go over there. Where? To the shelf which is third on the left side. Are you sure the book will be there? I am sure. There are 3-4 books on roses kept on the shelf marked as books on plants. Thank you very much. It would be easy for me to get the book. Library is one common organization that adopts classification. In library, usually books are arranged in general sections such as English, plants, animals, business, sports, etc., and so on. Such an arrangement helps a reader who comes to search for a particular book. For example, Nomi wanted to read some information on rose. He looked for the book on the shelf having books on plants. It is simply because Nomi knew that rose is classified as a plant, and librarian guided him towards the shelf pertaining to plant section. The classification in context to living things is also very important, since it helps us to understand the living world in a better way. Carolus Linnaeus was a Swedish biologist and is considered as a pioneer in the field of taxonomy. He made an attempt to classify living organisms into two kingdoms, the plant kingdom and the animal kingdom. He divided each of these kingdoms into smaller groups called classes. Each class was split into orders. Each order was divided into genera and each genus into many species. Each of these groups was formed on the basis of certain specific morphological features. He described about 5,000 species of plants in his famous book, Genera Plantarum. Similarly, he listed about 4,300 species of animals. He published his scheme of natural classification in the book Systema Naturae. His system of classification provided a firm basis for modern taxonomy. This system of classification is used even today with some additions and modifications. The biodiversity that we see today is the result of millions of years of organic evolution. Since the appearance of life on our planet, many species have become extinct. Newer forms keep on appearing, resulting in a great diversity. It is essential to classify these organisms in a manner by which we can easily identify them. It is necessary to study the individual organisms on their individual level as well as in relation to other organisms in nature. Classification is also needed to distinguish among various organisms and to facilitate communication with other biologists. As new things are constantly being discovered, scientists are trying to figure out to which division each new living thing belongs. The importance of classification. Classification is a man-made system for the orderly storage and retrieval of data about living world. All members of the living world have to have a name and preferably an allotted place in the huge spectrum of classification. The data entered while classifying living organisms can be used in several ways. It clearly helps in identifying species, studying and conserving species, targeting conservation efforts. Uses and importance of classification. Study of the enormous biodiversity is made easy by using the data collected during classification of living organisms. all forms of life can be scanned at a glance, as we have an inventory of all living organisms' data. The interrelationship among different groups of organisms is better understood with the help of a classification system. It helps to establish natural relationship among organisms. It forms the foundation for the development of other biological sciences as well. The study of animal behavior is not possible without proper identification and classification. The classification of organisms is important because it gives scientists a method of communication that is universal when referring to different organisms. A single word is able to sum up all the details needed on an organism and its natural habits and needs. The classification of organisms also helps scientists to organize the information they have. Is of classification. Linnaeus grouped living organisms on the basis of phylogeny. Phylogeny means evolutionary history. Biologists believe that all organisms on the earth are generally related, and the genetic relationships of living things can be studied by phylogeny. Phylogeny of organisms implies that different species arise from previous forms. Organisms have evolved through the ages from ancestral forms into more derived forms. This fact becomes the basis of studies while classifying any organism. The process of naming an organism is a highly organized system consisting of establishing genetic relationship between organisms and identifying evolutionary trends among them. The science of classifying and naming the organisms is known as taxonomy. The biologists who specialize in classification are called taxonomists. The scientific study of biological diversity and its evolutionary history is called systematic.